Ukraine has a long and complex history marked by both periods of autonomy and times of foreign rule. After the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, Ukraine declared its independence. This was a momentous occasion for the Ukrainian people. However, the transition to independence was not without its challenges. Ukraine inherited a complex economic and political system from the Soviet era. The country faced economic hardship and struggled to establish democratic institutions. It adopted a new constitution, held democratic elections, and began to build its economy. The international community recognized Ukraine's independence and offered support. However, the legacy of Soviet rule and the geopolitical realities of the region continued to cast a shadow. The country's strategic location made it a focal point of geopolitical competition. Russia sought to maintain its influence over Ukraine. The West encouraged Ukraine to integrate more closely with Europe. This tug-of-war between Russia and the West had significant consequences for Ukraine's future. In 2014, Russia invaded and annexed the Crimean Peninsula, a Ukrainian territory with a majority Russian population. This act of aggression marked a significant escalation of tensions between Russia and Ukraine. It also sent shockwaves through the international community, shattering the post-Cold War order in Europe. Russia's annexation of Crimea was widely condemned as a violation of international law and Ukraine's sovereignty. The international community responded with sanctions against Russia. The United States, the European Union, and other countries imposed economic sanctions on Russia. The annexation had a profound impact on Ukraine, losing control over a strategically important territory. It marked a turning point, setting the stage for the broader conflict in 2022. Following the annexation of Crimea, Russia also began supporting separatists in eastern Ukraine in a region known as the Donbas. The Donbas is a heavily industrialized region with a large Russian-speaking population. Pro-Russian separatists, backed by Russia, launched an armed insurgency against the Ukrainian government. This marked the beginning of a protracted conflict in the Donbas, which would claim thousands of lives and displace millions of people. The conflict in the Donbas was characterized by intense fighting between Ukrainian government forces and Russian-backed separatists. Both sides used heavy weaponry, including artillery, tanks, and rocket systems. This resulted in widespread destruction and a humanitarian crisis in the region. The conflict also drew in international actors, with Russia providing military support to the separatists and Western countries providing military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine. The conflict in the Donbas had a devastating impact on the region. Cities and towns were reduced to rubble, and millions of people were forced to flee their homes. The United Nations estimated that over 14,000 people were killed in the conflict, including civilians. The conflict also had a significant economic impact on the region, as industries and businesses were destroyed. The Minsk Agreements, a series of ceasefires negotiated in 2014 and 2015, aimed to end the fighting in the Donbas. However, these agreements were fragile and frequently violated. The conflict in the Donbas became a frozen conflict, with neither side able to achieve a decisive victory but the fighting continuing sporadically. In the months leading up to the 2022 invasion, Russia amassed a large military force along Ukraine's borders. This military buildup was accompanied by increasingly bellicose rhetoric from the Russian government, which accused Ukraine of provocations and of being a puppet of the West. Despite diplomatic efforts to de-escalate the situation, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine on February 24, 2022. The 2022 invasion of Ukraine was a major escalation of the conflict that had begun in 2014. It was the largest military operation in Europe since World War II, and it marked a turning point in European security. The invasion was met with widespread international condemnation, and it triggered a series of sanctions against Russia. The invasion also led to a refugee crisis, as millions of Ukrainians fled their homes to escape the fighting. The invasion was launched on multiple fronts, with Russian forces entering Ukraine from Russia, Belarus, and Crimea. The initial objectives of the invasion appeared to be to capture the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, and to overthrow the government of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. However, the Russian advance was met with fierce resistance from Ukrainian forces, and the invasion quickly bogged down. The 2022 invasion of Ukraine had a profound impact on the country. It led to widespread death and destruction, and it displaced millions of people. The invasion also had a significant impact on the global economy, leading to higher energy prices and supply chain disruptions.